Hello out there, everybody. Manny here at Area 503, and I hope that you all have been well since our last video, live stream, or whenever we talked last. I'm glad that everyone could come out and join us here today. It was kind of a late notice that we were going to do this stream, but I'm real excited to get back in front of you all and talk about some of this stuff. And I've got a special guest here today who's got some things to say about past, present, and future situations in ufology and projects that he's had. So I don't think I'm going to dilly-dally too much. We're going to bring Bob Kiviat out here in just one second, but I just wanted to say again, thank you for everyone who's decided to come in and join us here today. Bob, you in the back there? I'm going to bring you right out.
Good to see you, Manny. How are you, sir?
Yeah, it's good to see you too, Bob. I'm doing well. What's been going on? What do you want to talk about today? I mean, I know we got a general idea, but
it's an impromptu thing we're doing here. And Manny, you've been real great and helped me organize some of where we're going with this. So I'll just lay it out as clearly as I can. When I was with the Fox Network doing my TV specials, people probably aware a lot of them: Alien Autopsy, UFOs Caught on Tape, Miracles Caught on Tape, prophecies coming true or not, ghosts caught on tape or not. The idea was always fact or fiction. And I say fact or fiction. No middle of the road. No, well, maybe, I don't know. No. Fact or fiction. So actually, one of the executives at Fox Network was one of the ones who felt my work should be called fact or fiction, because I'm looking at the truth one way or the other. That's the goal. And so we then developed these specials under the fact or fiction banner. Unfortunately, as happens a lot in television, networks have many concerns. And one of their concerns was that the X-Files would be their number one breadwinner, moneymaker, all that, which it was. When I came aboard, it was already there. But the viewers seem to resonate with my shows as much as the X-Files. If you look at the ratings of my shows on the Fox Network, though they're only maybe 10, whatever, specials, 11. The X-Files is on every week for many, many years, right? So I can't argue with that, but the idea was to keep me down. I found out years later, confirmed it years later, heard it throughout the years, but always knew that the guy who ran the X-Files, I'm told by people on the staff, did not want me to have too many TV specials on the Fox Network when they were hot, because I would be kind of, diminishing by nature, just naturally, a lot of the baloney, just get the baloney out of there. And the X-Files initially started like based in fact. The concept was they take an article, see if it's a real article in a real newspaper, a real magazine, or something journalistic, and see if that could be made into an interesting storyline. And for 2 or 3 seasons, if you really look at the first 2-3 seasons, one of the people who joined the X-Files, his name is Howard Gordon. He's one of my dear friends from New York. We grew up together, junior high, high school, science class, whole thing, and all the other stuff high schools go through. So when I moved to LA to work for the show Unsolved Mysteries on NBC, before I ever got my own shows, Howard called me up one day and said, "Hey, Bobby," I called him Bobby. "Hey, Bobby, I want to come over and see you over at Unsolved Mysteries." I go, "Oh, why?" And he wasn't working on the X-Files yet. It wasn't even a show yet. And he came to me and he said, "Did you hear about the show called The X-Files?" I said, "I heard about it being a pilot. I heard there's 2 FBI agents looking into UFOs. Interesting." And my friend Howard said, "Bobby, look at behind you. All these files on your desk, behind your desk here." And there were 2 witnesses to this, by the way. 2 producers named John and Catherine. They could be called at any given moment. I know you're like, "Facts, Manny. Who's Lou?" Don't forget, that brought us together, which we'll talk about today. But the main thing is that I recognize that the X-Files was mostly bullshit by season 4. But the reason why the first 3 seasons were interesting, my friend Howard left my office, it's classic, with files under his arms. He takes real based files about UFOs and other mysteries to the X-Files, and they use some of those files to make shows, believe it or not. I'm not going to point out which ones today, but if anybody wants to know which episodes, the NSI, okay, another one where there was a guy who could make lightning strike people left and right, and the lady next door he was in love with, Mrs. Kiviat. It was supposed to be Kiviat. Howard wrote this for me years later.
It's like an Easter egg for you.
As an homage.
Yeah, like an homage.
Because Chris Carter's his name. He didn't want my recognition, he didn't want me to be known as helping the X-Files. But the bottom line is, that's television, okay? They had the big monster hit. I'm the guy trying to tell the truth about these mysteries. My ratings are as high as their ratings when I'm on, but I'm only on invariably 2 or 3 times a year if I'm lucky. And that gave me a little bit of a start, Manny, but not the way I wanted. So Fact or Fiction was supposed to be a series. And when the X-Files started to dilute themselves, my friend Howard went off and did his own work, joined 24, helped win the Emmy for 24, went off and made his own show called Homeland, a takeoff on an Israeli show, a huge hit on Showtime. He got away from that stuff, but the show itself, in my opinion, the X-Files, I couldn't even watch it by season 4. I couldn't even watch it. It was like ghosts and monsters and bullshit. Let's call it for what it is. Complete bullshit. Now, where did the bullshit begin, Manny? That's the question. When did we start to allow bullshit into the UFO community? When did that start? Unfortunately, Manny, we witnessed something back in 2017 where the New York Times decided that they are going to do a story about UFOs with absolutely zero knowledge about what the fuck they were doing. Pardon my French. The writer of that story was a pretty well-known writer for the New York Times. Should have known better. He's working as a freelancer now, but should have known better. He allowed basically a UFO zealot, no other word for it. She's a zealot, Keen.
Yeah.
She had involvement with one of the most well-known UFO abduction, hypno-regression, some say con artists, some say other things. I don't know. I'm a little unsure what to call Bud Hopkins. I had many interactions with Bud Hopkins over the years, none very pleasant, always very flippant about journalists saying, "What is your evidence? Are you even a trained hypnotherapist?" And then they have 2 other people come along to support Bud Hopkins. Now, why do I mention Bud Hopkins? Leslie Keene was very involved with Bud Hopkins. allegedly
Sure.
romantically. I tell you, I don't know about that personal life. I don't care.
I think she pretty much, in the UFO series on Showtime, I think she pretty much had to admit that her article was completely biased. I mean, she said, she didn't say it in so many words. She said, well, we couldn't mention OSAP, we couldn't mention that, but then Jim Lukatsky, I think, had gone online and said, I think her article had about 5% factual information in it, and all the rest was, I don't know, creative writing, biased
No, yeah,
propaganda. Who knows?
yeah, the way,
Um,
the way I would summarize it as a journalist, and by the way, I do take great pride in saying that I'm operating always as a journalist. Whether I wrote for Omni Magazine, which is a major science magazine. If anybody wants to read what a cover article, a science magazine author article should look like, I'll be glad to send you my main breakthrough article that put the face on Mars in the proper context that it turned out to be, we believe, a natural landform. But there are pyramids nearby that landform, which still aren't really explained very well. And the juxtaposition of those pyramids and this weird mesa on the Cydonia desert area of Mars, it's still a mystery to some degree, but not this sphinx looking up at you that people believed. But that's written like a science writer writes. So that's how I wrote that. So if I can become a science writer for Omni Magazine, do you think I'm going to drop that scientific acumen when I look at this stuff? No. So what occurred was, when Leslie and this other reporter named Cooper got together with Lou Elizondo and Ralph Blumenthal, the writer, who knows what happened? I did a story about Hal Puthoff, about being a phony not phony, but exaggerating what psychic power research really was about, and what kind of evidence there was that psychic power should be studied by the governments of Russia or America or anybody. I did a story years ago with Geraldo Rivera in a show he did Now It Can Be Told, that I exposed most of the psychic warfare spending and baloney for just what it was: a techno scam. A way to take money out of the government coffers and put it in your own pocket, one way or another. You may involve Uri Geller. You may involve other alleged remote viewers like Ingo Swann. Okay, you may do all that, but that doesn't mean the evidence you're assessing and putting together is worth anything. Okay, so they may well be claiming to be psychics and whatever, but the evidence was bullshit. And the amount of money being spent, whether it was only $1 million a year, whatever it was still a wasted amount of money. Now, somebody said, "What's $1 million? Go be a psychic if you want." But they were using that to build other businesses for themselves. They go off into the private sector and ask people for money and help us and whatever. Well,
and that ties into what we have today now, kind of. It's a new face on the old scam, right?
You better believe it. It's exactly the same kind of scam. Your work with Lou, your work on Who's Lou, identified clearly what kind of a BS artist Lou Elizondo is. Okay? You didn't need to study it any more than your own video of what kind of a disingenuous character this guy is. Now, a lot of things have come out since that have supported that notion that he's a bit of a clown. But the audacity to say, yes, and we believe they're from somewhere else, and there'll be many more videos coming out very soon. 5 years later, Lou, what do we got? We got triangles being debunked by the UAP committee in an empty room, pretty much. And by the way, let's get to this point for a minute. Anybody who thinks, the government, if you just study the Condon Committee, people need to go do a little homework tonight. This might be my professorial moment for anyone watching tonight. I tried to reach out to people, key people, the guys on the Nimitz. Yes, you guys. Jason? Yeah, right? Okay. Gary? Yeah, huh? Let's be clear about this. There's nothing unique about Congress being kind of like maneuvered into having to look at UFOs. We've got the Condon Committee. We've got the Robertson panel. Do your homework. This is not new.
Schiff and the GAO investigation in Roswell. It's happened before, and to not a very successful result. Definitely not like it's been portrayed online, where it's some big huge thing that Congress is becoming involved in UFOs. And you'll notice that right after the midterms here recently, Hardly any of them. I mean, there's one out there, Tim Burchett's still talking about UFOs, but all the rest of them are gone.
Man,
Anybody
you
else?
can't. Yeah, but you cannot compare historically.
They don't care. Yeah.
They need to. These people who
Yeah.
just joined the UAP research community, like it's another version of UFOs. It is not. It is 3 videos and some nomenclature baloney triggered by Hillary Clinton on Jimmy Kimmel years ago, which is being seen by many people at the CIA as a joke. It's like a joke what's going on here. So in the future, which we'll be talking about tonight, I'm going to be releasing 4 feature documentary films, which we believe will be in theaters. One will be a show called Ufolotics. It will get into the entire thing I'm mentioning to you, that there was a historical, like, let's just talk about one thing for a minute. Harry Truman, during the 50s or late 40s, early 50s, commented, oh, yeah, we get together with the guys and, oh, yeah, we talk about the flying saucers. A president of the United States is saying that. Compared to this nonsense, these congressmen and these senators, like pick any of them, they're getting forced into dealing with it because Elizondo came out, created a little bit of a stir, claimed he was a Pentagon insider, who basically never ran anything called aatip, because guess what? aatip never existed. Get it?
Yeah.
And the Oswald group, right? That thing. That was completely a misdirection move by Harry Reid and Lukaski at the Defense Intelligence Agency to literally fake everybody out in Congress and Capitol Hill across the board, when in reality they were moving the money to Bob Bigelow's ranch to do whatever. What did they find for $22 million? There's a great story to tell you right now, Manny. Bruce Maccabee was a top researcher, and believe it or not, getting older now, but still a top researcher, I believe, in UFOs in our world, really. Top Navy optical physicist. He literally, at this point in history, should be looked at very, very carefully, because he's been dealing with the UFO subject for decades and decades. And he has a close relationship with the guy at the CIA that we're going to be bringing out for the first ever interview with Ron Pandolfi at the CIA. Ron is the only known CIA scientist that was asked by a presidential science team to give a briefing to the United States president. In that case, it was Clinton. And that's a huge thing, because why would they be turning to Ron? Well, Ron will explain that, but I think it has something to do with Bruce Maccabee arranging to have impromptu meetings at the CIA with some of the best UFO video evidences. And that's where I come from. I'm about the evidence of video. So I called Hal Puthoff April of 2018. TTSA was just getting going in there, whatever they're doing. And Hal Puthoff said to me, who is basically the head of TTSA, I mean, he is really, no matter what, he retired or whatever, he was the guy who formed it, more or less. And he told me that, yes, Bob, we know your expertise in television and video documentaries film documentaries is video and UFO video. We get that. So let me talk to Tom DeLonge and get back to you. It took him months. Finally, Hal Puthoff gets back to me. Well, Bob, guess what? Talk to Tom DeLonge about it. He's going to get back to you directly. Finally get a letter from, I guess, his sister or something. And it's basically quoting Tom saying, sorry, Bob, but we already sold our rights. Sold your rights? What the blank does that mean? Well, we found out. They sold their rights to their story, whatever their story is, to History Channel. History Channel goes, great, you just tell your story. We don't care, whatever your story is. They didn't bring a researcher or a producer in like me, who knows the field for 20 years or more, who understands the history, and could put a good objective view on this.
Right.
Instead, you end up with 2 seasons of Unidentified, which is some of the most unwatchable television about UFOs I've ever seen in my life. Yeah. It is almost comical. Almost as comical as the recent Brazilian documentary, which we'll get into if you want. So
Yeah, and that's that common theme that we're seeing in media nowadays, is that blurring of the line between entertainment and factual investigative journalism or news.
there's no line.
And yeah,
There's
and
no
there is,
blur. There's no line.
and there isn't, and it's something that we're seeing prominently nowadays, but it's not. It's been around for a while, as we both know. People have kind of taken this avenue for different outs over
Yeah.
the years.
Right.
They misreport something or put out something that they know is false,
Right.
and then they say, "Oh, it was entertainment. We're just sharing this story. I'm just telling
Right.
you what this person said." But there's that old credo in journalism where if one person tells you that it's raining outside and the other person tells you that it isn't, it's not your job to report the both. It's your job to stick your head outside and see if it's raining or not and report that. Right?
I hate to tell you and anybody watching today, everyone watching today, that the blur you're referring to occurred back in the 80s. And it was done because the news industry was looked at as an entertainment sector they could kind of monetize. So they got away from being objective, journalistic, concerned networks and said, "The hell with it." And all you got to do is see what happened in 1993 on the CBS network. And CBS decided they're going to do a documentary with a company called Sun Classics in Utah. This is a company putting out the most ridiculously B or C movies in theaters you could ever imagine. These are the kind of movies that you either have to have a religious zealotness, some sort of religious almost belief in the kind of things they were looking into. And basically the objectivity of journalism, I don't think you could even use the word journalism in the same sentence as Sun Classics, okay? Anybody who knows the history of Sun Classics and Chuck Cellular know what that company was about. How CBS could ever have gotten in bed with that company and put documentaries like they did in the early 90s boggles my mind. Boggles my mind. However, in 1993, in February, I believe, they did something called the discovery of Noah's Ark. They made it very clear Noah's Ark had been found, and they have the evidence to prove it, and tune in, probably at 8 o'clock, right? So it goes on. It gets pillared by the scholarly community. And very shortly after that, the guy who claimed to have a piece of wood from Noah's Ark comes public and he says, "Aha, nope. I actually cooked that piece of wood in my Long Beach, California home. And it's just a piece of wood. And I faked you guys out. And you guys never should have put that on. You took advantage of people. You took advantage of the religious thinking. You took advantage of whatever. Okay, fine. But it didn't die on that, Manny. Finally, the writers in journalism started to really look at this. And Dan Rather, paraphrasing what Dan Rather, the famous CBS News guy, said, he said, when you're on a network and if you're watching a network and you watch at 7 o'clock and you see the news or 6:30, the news, you may forget that an hour and a half later it's the entertainment division. And if they act like they got a discovery of Noah's Ark in a documentary, that you assume the evidence will be looked at by credible CBS vetters, fact checkers, whatever. How about just carbon date the piece of wood? How about that? And then when you cut through all the food color, whatever the guy glazed it with, you'd realize, wait a minute, this is not even, they never would even got to the point ever of even testing it. They would have been like, they would have just chipped a little piece off and realized it was a hoax. I have no idea what CBS is thinking, nor did many other people. So much so that when, as recounted by Mike Darnell, the former Fox executive I did Alien Autopsy, Fact or Fiction with, the 3 shows we did for them, and then World's Greatest Hoaxes, where we debunked the Alien Autopsy after studying the issue for 3 years. We had the knowledge to debunk it, and we did, unlike other networks ran Noah's Ark, whatever. Mike Darnell said at he was being honored at the TV Academy a few years ago, because he's really the improvisario of reality television. He became prolific in reality television. He said that when I brought them the video of the alien autopsy, they were very afraid because Noah's Ark had just happened and people were doubting it, and they were worried it'd be a hoax. And what if it's a hoax? And as I told Fox, whether it's a hoax or not, that's the point. Fact or fiction, what is it? And it may take us a little while, but I said, I assure you that if anybody breaks it as a hoax, it'll be us. And we did. So in other words, there was a 3-year period, Manny, where anybody could have gone after my research, show me to be a entertainment guy, show that I wasn't a real good journalist. But the bottom line is we knew enough about the story that finally in 98, we were able to really tell it. And years later, they tried to remake their little hoax story, but doesn't matter. We nailed it. We said who it was. We even found the guy who made the brightly lit scene, the whole cutting up the body and everything. But he promised me he wouldn't talk to anybody for a couple of years, and finally he agreed to go public and tell his story a lie, tell his story all over again. Bottom line is, these are the stories that require you to know your beat, Manny. You need to know your beat. So Ralph Blumenthal didn't know his beat. If Leslie came in with a bunch of information and she said to the New York Times, this is what I know, you can bank on it, that's not what happened. They just let Lou tell his story. Hal put off, try to kind of gloss it over with some whatever. It was a ridiculous story. In fact, I believe, as I told many people, and a top LA Times writer yesterday, I believe the LA Times story of the UAPs will go down as one of the worst covered journalistic stories by any newspaper ever. Not just the New York Times and New Yorker and anywhere. It was the worst covered. You can go through that article right now. Black auras and whatever it was called.
Yeah, glowing auras out of the shadows. Yeah.
Paragraph for paragraph. And I guarantee if I was teaching college, I could give it not only an F, but there might be some actionable problems here.
Well, there's all kinds of problems with it. I mean, the article itself was written with the intent to further an agenda. So it's by nature a propaganda piece.
So
and
yeah,
then
tell us what Leslie claims the benefit of lying about a UFO story. What's the benefit of lying and trying to make something sound? Because remember, before you answer, how do you pronounce it? Aswap?
Awesome.
Oswap was a lie.
SAP.
Was a lie to Congress. Harry Reid, before you answer what Leslie's motivations were, okay, to fool Ralph Blumenthal, to make the New York Times have to deal with this, I'm sure, for years to come. And I believe that. All you got to do is have a professor make it a course, and they could. The New York Times blunder course, and all the mistakes you could make as a journalistic outfit because you're trying to get clickbait in 2017. You're trying to keep up with the Joneses on the internet, but you're willing to blow the reputation of your newspaper in New York, which is considered to be one of the, with all deference to anybody saying otherwise, the New York Times was considered to be one of the top newspapers in the world. It probably still is. So you blow that credibility for what? Harry Reid, in a forward of a book that came out about Skinwalker Ranch recently, posthumously admitted that $22 million was hidden with a name to make it appear that the guy Lukasky was telling the truth from the DIA, that it was about studying technologies for the future and what we will look like, what will military weapons and whatever look like or aerial weapons look like in 2040 or 50 or whatever. He said, he bragged in the forward of this book, anyone can read, that it was like, no pun intended, about Harry Reid. They can read about Harry Reid, that he was not honest. He thought he could fool the congressional body that he was overseeing. What kind of scandal is that? Okay. So $22 million goes to Bigelow, never to look at UFOs or whatever. So where did these 3 videos come from? We'll get to that. But let me ask you this. What does Leslie claim the benefit would be to lie about these subjects? What's the reason?
I believe she said it was to further this conversation about alien life, this form of disclosure that they're pushing, which isn't disclosure. Right. It's a new form of SETI is what they're kind of pushing on us. So I think it was that. I think it was some kind of greater good to, push the conversation forward. And she probably justifies it by the congressional interest, but I don't know.
I couldn't disagree more. The problem is if you don't know what happened back in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, with UFOs, which was a few things came forward. Donald Kehoe in the 50s, others in the 60s, some in the 70s, Steven Spielberg. They rallied the population to take UFOs seriously, but not the government. The government is very limited in terms of what they can even share. Even if there was an alien landing near a military base, you know that's going to be considered national security. So you're asking an institution, our government, let's say, to embrace something that our population itself is already studying. I have 50 videos in 2 different Fox specials shot by everyday people, pretty much, that have never been explained properly. You don't need to have NASA or the military with their Navy jets searching for UFOs. UFOs have been prolifically videotaped and filmed and captured for decades. Ironically, though, when the cell phone came out and the smartphone proliferated with these high resolution cameras, there have been a diminishing of UFO incidents of everybody at home capturing UFOs. Why is that? That's something we can talk about. Maybe there's a way we can reason it out. But that does not mean you take 3 videos. Let's go through this. One video shot in 2004, allegedly, by some military camera, I guess on the Nimitz, sent out to somebody, so it ends up on abovetopsecret.com in 2007.
Yeah, the Tic Tac.
Seems to gone through a circuitous route through it, and people in my new show, Ufologics, coming out, the movie, which we'll talk about at the end today, that movie is getting funded right now, and Screen Media, top companies behind it, and we'll talk about that. When Ron comes on from the CIA to talk about this, he'll talk about his own personal story. He's not going to talk about his governmental things, because he can't. He can't talk about things that are national security. Most things with the CIA are. But he can talk about from his own personal point of view what's going on here. Right, but I think when you look at what happened here, these one video, we'll start with that one, gets leaked from the Nimitz, goes up to the internet, gets shown on Above Top Secret. Somehow a German company in some kind of photo lab is involved. That made our guy at the CIA very suspicious about this. So that's one of the videos that Chris Mellon from the Mellon family kind of like jerry-rigged out of the, don't even ask me, that's a wrong word. He kind of absconded with some video and tried to make like it was an exclusive.
Yeah, he admitted it in the Phenomenon movie. He said somebody handed them in the Pentagon parking lot in a brown paper sack. Somebody handed him these videos, and he walked off the property with them.
Well, right. So let's go through the one video was already out. Wait, hold on. In a paper, what you said, Manny, is in a paper bag.
Yeah,
is a DVD containing a video that was already released in 2007 through some weird, no one knows exactly route.
Yeah,
and then it's reemerged as a special video from Lou Elizondo at the Pentagon. Like, really, good job you have there. You're getting a video from 2004, released in 2007.
That had already been leaked, yeah.
And you're releasing it like it's new, and you're not even telling people it never came out before. Great. David Fravor knew this. He is a likely suspect, and who leaked it? What a joke. Number 2, the gimbal video. The government had no idea what to make of this. They don't know where it came from exactly. They start releasing these videos. Now it turns out last month, the New York Times finally admits what is so obvious. It's the gimbal camera creating that weird movement on a blotchy shape that a lot of things look like saucer shapes. Let me tell you, okay? That doesn't mean anything. But oh my God, the movement and ridiculous. We had a group of people, Dave Beatty, wonderful researcher, puts together a group of people. They figured out by the weather and the clouds and everything what ship it came from. Once they found out what ship it came from, we were able to kind of figure out more about it. And now the word gimbal even, for some reason, when Mellon got his little release done, they misspelled gimbal for some reason. Who are you trying to fool? The spelling of a gimbal camera is spelled a certain way. That's why it was called gimbal, because there's the little mechanism on the camera is gimbal. But so all I'm saying to you is The third video, well, I don't know where that came from. Go fast. It's not going very fast. The New York Times just admitted it's not going very fast. They never even released that one.
Yeah, it's retrograde motion. You've got two objects in flight that are moving away from each other, or one circling another one. It's there's all kinds of optical illusions.
Let's call out young Gaddy Schwartz at NBC News. Gaddy, give me a call, because your producers led you down the primrose path where you can hear him all excited. Even talking to my old friend Ben Hansen on some show they did some news report a couple of weeks ago. Ben is an honest guy. He's trying to get to the answer to some of this stuff, but there's Gaddy trying to make everything sound so serious. And shut up, Gaddy. Stop it already. You're a young guy doing serious reports on the news a lot. So a recent one, very tragic story. I felt bad for the guy that he got roped into UFOs. He's going to have to look years from now at these breathless reports he did about, those triangles shot at night. Oh, really? That the UAP committee group, whatever, has to debunk it on Capitol Hill? You didn't even need that. You could tell right away the iris of the camera is creating a shape. Bruce Maccabee went over that in my video shows on UFOs 2 decades, 15 years.
Yeah, I was gonna say that, Bob. I mean, over the years, you've looked at needless to say, a significant amount of UFO footage on different types of cameras and things. And so when you see stuff like that, you're kind of just like, okay, I know what that is. That's a bokeh, or it's some kind of shadow or effect, or it's something like that. But a lot of people, if they're just getting into this and they haven't been around the block, it looks amazing. Because it's their first time seeing something like that. The question is, how does that get into the hands of experts and then get all the way up to Capitol Hill and on the news and all that? And it's because, I mean, I don't think they're trying to report at the actual story. I think
actually, Manny, I'll have to correct you. These 3 videos, if that's what to call them, seconds each. We're talking about seconds. If I would have walked those 3 videos into the Fox network, they would have left me out of the room. They would have said, we know nothing about him, or what we do know, it doesn't make us feel too good. One video wasn't even exclusive. It was shot in 2004, released in 2007. I would have walked in and had to explain that. Second one, hey, Bob, why is it called gimbal? I'm a little worried because the camera that was shot with is called gimbal.
Yeah, it's a gimbal camera because it swivels a certain way. Yeah.
It's known as a gimbal on that camera, of that particular camera by Raytheon. Raytheon makes them mostly. And there's this gimbal mechanism that kind of moves in a certain way. And it's going to create this weird vision if you shoot something, right? And then the third one, go fast, isn't going fast. There's nothing saying it's going fast. So why would they say it's going fast? Why say go fast? And then Fox would have said to me in a heartbeat, and NBC Universal years later would have said the same thing. Bob, listen to those guys. Yeah, who talks like that? What pilot driving let's talk about the expensive planes they're navigating, right? If you hear someone sounding like they're at a carnival, are you kidding me?
Yeah, sure. The footage was kind of lackluster. I agree, especially for the amount of hype that it had been given.
These are not videos that would have made it into UFOs caught on tape number 1 at Fox. UFOs caught on tape number 2. Hold on. Aliens on the Moon, The Truth Exposed, a few years ago I did for NBC Sci-Fi. You can see it on Shout Factory tonight if you want. Literally, and Amazon, literally speaking, I just set up the beginning to show the popularity of UFOs is presently going on, even now, 2015, whatever period this was. And even in those videos are more impressive than this. So all I'm saying to you is, what is going on here? So no experts gave these films these videos any credibility except Hal Puthoff, Chris Mellon, Tom DeLonge for a company called TTSA, which a woman on Capitol Hill named, let me finish, Congressman Beatty calls a literal Regulation A+ stock scheme. I'm getting emails up until a few weeks ago. Last round of funding. For what? Yeah. To lie to people, Manny, is what it's all about.
On the topic of TTSA, I get those emails too, and I know exactly what you're talking about, that I see the investor pitching that's going on there. And in 2018 that Beatty made that speech on the House floor? They were talking about
19. I think it was 19.
19. So they were talking about the Regulation A stock offerings, and they said, yeah, she was using TTSA as an example of companies that they didn't want using this process because they felt like it was a stock scheme, just like Bob had just said. And it's really important to note that, you know, like these videos. Remember when TTSA first came out with their press release and did that staged press release in Seattle with Elizondo and everyone on stage.
Yeah,
The Dog
when
and
we
Pony
put in
Show.
a photo. The great
Yeah.
UFO over here. It's a Mylar balloon, and Melon's pointing to it like it's a major event coming out.
So that event was kind of a comedy in its own way, you know, because it was all staged. They were using balloons. They were using footage that they knew, you know, a picture of malachite that they said was like some kind of exotic metamaterial, and then later said, oh, well, that was just an example. That's not an actual picture. And I'm like, you presented it as a picture of a metamaterial. You know, like what is going on, you know? But
that piece has been around forever, man. That piece of metal, composition, whatever you want to call it, has been around forever. People have been pointing that thing for years. I got bored the second I saw it. I went, oh no, here's this bismuth or whatever they call it. I'll be honest with you. We were suckered in as a culture to the point of absurdity by these people called Tom DeLonge, Hal Puthoff, you know, Chris Mellon, Jim Simivan, whoever the blank he is. What I understand from Jim Simivan is he literally sought out a Sedona, Arizona tour guide to give him a tour and his wife of UFO areas where they could communicate with flashlights and all this. This is becoming beyond comedy. This is becoming absurd. UFOs to me, Manny, was always a aerospace industry, an aerospace mystery. Excuse me, an aerospace industry mystery. That's where UFOs fit in. Either they are craft of our own, some otherworldly, interdimensional, or whatever visitor, or even something else. But it appears to be within the aerospace world. So that if you're a UFO researcher and you're doing a study of certain things in UFOs, you might come across some military information that a Russian spy or a Chinese spy might want to know about. Now you know why the CIA would look at UFOs.
Well, that does make sense.
Because they're looking at the people that the Russians and the Chinese might be looking at. So when people see our movie, Ufologics, and Manny, you're going to be involved in it. You know you're part of it now. Ufologics and the CIA scientist speaks is what the really show is going to be. We're going to rip the lid off this. We're going to rip the cover off the ball in baseball terms. Okay, we are going to get so into the nitty gritty, but we're going to come out with some of the best UFO cases that cannot be explained and easily. And even though Ron at CIA has been extremely tough to convince that there's anything otherworldly or interdimensional about UFOs, specifically to date, there are a couple of cases that have really made him scratch his head. And we're going to look at those. For instance, the JAL 1628 1986 case is an unbelievable case. It was documented as best you can document with FAA assistance, radar, whatever. Now, there are many still questions and debunkers out there trying to attack the pilot and attack the credibility. But there's evidence in this case that might be among the best to look at. It doesn't mean that you can prove there was a gigantic craft that looked like the planet Saturn with a huge thing around it and all that. And you'll be seeing that in ufologics, right? Oh, there's a little hint to Ron what to be ready for if he's watching. But no, really the bigger issue is Bruce Maccabee was just mentioned by Dan Aykroyd fairly recently, the famous comedian. And he's into UFOs. Dan's a serious UFO researcher. I will say that. And Dan brought up Bruce Maccabee. I'll give it to you to post anytime you like after we're done today. And he talked about Bruce Maccabee as being the guy. And I agree with that. Bruce is like my dear friend, right? Older guy now, but dear friend. So he's the one who brought Ron, in many ways, into the 1628 JAL case. Because Bruce is known to show Ron and some people at the CIA in the past, informally, some of the best evidence of UFOs. Bruce broke a famous case about New Zealand years ago that was shown on all the network news all around the world, all around the country, every country, some of the more interesting video of the time. I think there's been better cases now, and we'll get into that before we end tonight, where my movies are going. But politics, the CIA scientist speaks. Finally, from a personal point of view, he's not going to speak for the government. He's speaking for himself and his knowledge and what he knows, what he can share about many issues, including that Techno scam called TTSA, which is a carryover from other scams known as Techno scams, anti-gravity devices. Anti-gravity devices supported by the guy right now running and owning Skinwalker Ranch, a guy who has been involved heavily in pseudo-science to the nth degree.
Yeah, we touched on that earlier. We talked about it being a new face on an old scam, and it's going back to that. We're talking about TTSA now, but before that, there was the International Academy of Arts and Science, which was, as we see, was another sort of agency, right? Which you know all about. That was.
If you want to ask me about it, I'd be more than happy to talk about it. I don't relish the experience, except for the fact I got a chance to get to know who Iran is as a result, and so there was a good outcome for me, but it wasn't pretty. We had a guy that claimed he could build a machine that could be an anti-gravity machine. He claimed that he could involve the United States government. He claimed that he could maybe get DARPA involved. DARPA is the organization in the government that really develops our most sophisticated technology.
Yeah, and if he could do what they says that he could do, I fully understand why DARPA would want to be involved in that, and our national security infrastructure to be involved in that. If somebody's gonna pop a hypersonic craft on the public, they're going to want to control that technology until they can figure out how to protect against it.
That's true. But what if, Manny, instead of you having an anti-gravity device, what you really have are some spare parts from Russian researchers from years ago that couldn't make anything happen with these like spinning wheels, and basically they are fraudulent in every way, these little elements, okay? And they meant nothing. But even though somebody was trying to create some kind of movement and inertia with this stuff, it was all bogus to begin with. No one felt, as I researched it further, that these things had any chance of creating anything other than a scam. Now, the person that I referred to a few minutes ago, that now you can see on History Channel, whenever they run that show, Skinwalker, he literally believed it to the point where he keeps them in his like some science fiction archive of some kind. People lost a lot of money, Manny. People invested in these things. And they're not things you can get your hand on, get your head around, like, let's say, a movie, investing in a movie, which we'll talk about at the end tonight, right?
I think that you're talking about the Stephen Greenstreet's latest piece where he shows Brandon Fugel's office, and he's got that prototype machine from the International Academy of Arts and Science, but it's like in a collection of other like memorabilia, right? I mean, it's like in a collectibles collection. It's kind
I'm
of
not mentioning any names, but you've definitely mentioned a few, and I will tell you that the New York Post individual associated with the New York Post you mentioned, Greenstreet, did a very interesting piece, and I think that was only part one. So, have we seen part two yet?
Oh no, I think he's on 3 now. I think he's got a 4th one coming soon.
There's a part 2 already out on that?
Yeah. It's kind of split up though, because that was actually part of the original one that he had done, where he was looking at aatip and aatip and stuff like that. It's all part of a 5-part series, but last one was just on Fugel.
Not to pick on any one person in Utah who may or may not be very, very rich. Probably is, of course. But I'm hearing people crying poor. I think what we're really talking about here is the progression. You have Harry Reid supporting his friend Bob Bigelow in a fantasy to study unexplained phenomena at a piece of property in Utah, which is nothing more than a piece of property. Number 2, no matter what anybody wants to talk about, history of natives in the area and whatever, blah, blah. Bottom line is they have given the scientific community zero, and I mean zero, evidence of anything happening there at all. Number 2, when the money goes to Skinwalker Ranch all those years and they create some kind of a mythos about it, that opens a door for a guy with a lot of money to come in and go, yeah, I'd like to buy that. He buys it and continues the same kind of thing and at least do a TV show. But again, no credibility at all. Zero. And anybody that wants to say otherwise, let's take any evidence that show, just like Ancient Aliens, just like many other shows like Ghost Hunters years ago, take any of that evidence, or UFO Hunters years ago, into a kind of forum like I would do on a TV show, and my guess is most of it would not make the light of day. They'd be on the cutting room floor, all of it.
Yeah.
It wouldn't stand up for any scientific veracity at all.
The show seems to be firmly rooted in entertainment. That's for sure.
Why do you call that? Why can't we call it for what it really is? BS. Why can't it be called BS? Why is entertainment? If anybody who studied Rome, hate to get too serious with you, Manny, they said the same thing. When you read your history books, if anyone still reads any history books, I was shocked at my children who are great college students right now, bright young kids, love these mysteries and whatever. The things that they don't teach anymore in high school and junior high and stuff, it's hard to believe. It's really hard to believe. But if you grow up like I did, in my 50s, I would say that you knew a lot more about history and life and all that stuff. So when a scam is a scam or bullshit is bullshit, and a country starts to embrace it as entertainment, we're in trouble.
Well, it is. I get it, but there's been reality TV out there for a long time, is what I'm talking about.
They don't clip, but that's different. Reality TV, and that kind of evolved. I know what you mean.
Yeah,
reality TV started with unsolved mysteries, documentary type interviews, and all that. Then Survivor, game shows, American Idol, Big Brother, even The Voice. Those are what's called reality shows today.
Right.
Somehow the History Channel seems to think that you can kind of glom it all together and somehow come out with something that appears to be documentary in form, but in reality is what you're talking about. Entertainment, whatever. No need for truth. Truth. Who cares about truth?
Because it's all entertainment. There's no journalistic integrity. Well, there's no journalistic standard because they're not going for that. They're saying, no, this is entertainment. And that's always been my grief with the whole thing, is if you're going to do that, go out and write a series like Star Trek or Star Wars, or make a cool movie like The Matrix or something. We don't need to sell this entertainment as reality when it's clearly not.
No, Manny, you missed the point. They do need to. Yeah. They don't have the ratings they used to have. They need to compete. They need to create eyeballs to watch. So their level of journalistic or any objectivity has gone down the toilet, down the drain. There's no governor looking. There's no governor like on a motorcycle. There's no one keeping the speed limit within reason. When I did my shows at the Fox Network and NBC Universal, there are broadcast standards and practices. There are people looking, because there's people that could be damaged big time. We're talking about the Murdoch family. We're talking about, investors on Wall Street, major companies. Yeah. You can't have just willy-nilly BS going out.
Because there used to be a standard, like you said, because there was a liability. If you put something out that was complete garbage, you'd get sued and take a hit in your wallet, or get shut down or fined by the FCC or turned off. No,
Manny, not really, because I know you think that. One would naturally think what you just said. But when CBS ran the Noah's Ark hoax and took all kinds of arrows and negative and whatever, they kept running similar programs of the same company for a few more shows. Mm-hmm. Now, look, maybe they already paid for them. They had to get their money back, whatever. But that's the beginning, in my humble opinion, because Mike Darnell said it very clearly at the TV Academy 3 or 4 years ago, talking about me and him. We were worried about Noah's Ark in a good way. We're not going to let that happen to us, to the viewers. We're not going to do that to anybody. But the same mentality that allows that to go on allows the kind of thing you're seeing now with a Brazilian case that I'm not going to say anything negative because it's with the same company I'm doing some of my movies with now. So I'm going to be a political maven here, Manny, and say there's no alien in Brazil bodies and there's no video coming, and anybody out there saying that should Stop saying stuff like that.
Yeah.
Don't be a Lou Elizondo, Jim.
Right.
Don't be James. Don't be a Lou Elizondo. Don't do it.
If the evidence was there, it would have been, we'd seen it by now. That's for sure. I think,
Manny, it's dangerous when you go out and
Yeah.
say, like Lou Elizondo, well, there's a lot more videos coming, and they don't come.
Yeah, that guy doesn't keep any of his little promises, and he'll say just about anything.
He has no access to anything. He's a guy on the out. The guy was barely even around anything to do with congressional or governmental or Pentagon UFO secrecy. This is a con man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
right?
I want to argue that one.
Find out. And you politics will be approaching it like you're a con man. Come on our show. Come into our movie. Let me interview you and see if you're a con man or not.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk straight. Not Gaddy Schwartz at NBC News doing a breathless 4-minute piece about this video. This video is a triangle created by an iris and a camera, Gaddy.
Yeah.
Go deal with your NBC producer right now. You give him a little tap on the shoulder and say, hey, buddy, you're making me look like an idiot or miss.
Yeah, I think that was soundly debunked too on the internet. If people would have listened, they could have seen that people have done that work already. They didn't have to reinvent the cart, or the wheel. They just had to go and look at the work that people had done. Like Mick West, who did a solid debunk on 1 or 2 of those videos, and other people who had debunked some of those videos or explained them. I shouldn't say debunk, but explained what they were in a rational way.
Yeah, so. The New York Times seemed to have finally felt it necessary to more or less echo what Mick West said. Not only on my show, I did an internet show years ago with Joe Rogan's drink company called, he's one of the owners, called Kill Cliff. And we did a thing called, Bob Kiviat investigates conspiracy ideas, right? So I did this kind of show. And I'm telling you right now, Mick was ripping this left and right. It was like, in 2020, it's like, why did it take 2 more years for the New York Times to go, the gimbal probably created that shape. This is just, a triangle. It was created by, to me, the New York Times has a lot of explaining to do, and they should do it. They should really go out and say, look, you know what? We're in the clickbait world, and we got clickbaited ourselves, and we know.
It doesn't really end there, Bob, because the New York Times put out an article, but so did Politico, so did the Washington Post, so did everybody else followed suit. And that's the next part of this, is not just the complicit reporting and the initial article, but it's the copy paste reporting that everyone did after that to magnify this story and to bury the few people out there who wrote counter articles who did. There was some people in the media. I can think of 3 different names of journalists that I know of right off the bat who actually wrote articles saying TTSA is essentially a joke, and so is Elizondo. There's nothing here. And they were just buried in this swamp of people who were just playing it over and over and over and over again, and it just didn't seem to want to go away.
It's a knee-jerk reaction. You get the CNNs and the Tucker Carlsons. Oh my God, talk about credibility problems. And others to kind of glom onto this story for ratings, whatever they perceive success will come from it. And when they finally did all that, they're kind of stuck. They got to stay with it. Then Congress feels very uncomfortable. They feel maybe they've missed something here. So they try to figure it out. And it all leads to the most underwhelming event ever with UFOs in the government, which was that May 2022, empty room, almost empty, non-event, where they did do one thing. They debunked almost everything. And I love this one. This is my favorite moment. Is it competitive? I'm a journalist doing objective television about these mysteries, especially UFOs. I know what I'm doing. You don't like my work, you think I make a mistake, whatever you do, that's fine, but this is my job. And if you don't like it, tell me, it's fine. But I don't weaponize my imagination and my curiosity, okay, and regurgitate stories from the past that had no basic evidence at all back in 1989 or 1995, Skinwalker Ranch on one hand, Skinwalker Ranch on one hand, Bob Lazar on another. You can make all kinds of money with that. And people have. And God bless you. Count your money and have a wonderful time. But don't call that credible just because people are watching it. Now, they're watching it because there's no gatekeeper to keep that content in some form of journalistic objectivity So a broadcast standards and practices woman isn't going to freak out, go, I can't, a guy, I can't air that. There's nobody stopping it. So it goes straight out into the world. And money's made, which is wonderful for those making money. Even the company I work with now, fine. But let's call it what it is. You can still enjoy it if you like fake entertainment.
I do. I enjoy a lot of it. I watch Pawn Stars and I love it. You know, like, and I've
I don't know.
got
That's what we're talking about. We're not talking
a guilty pleasure of watching some of the housewife shows with my girlfriend, and it's funny. But I don't think that's reality.
That's not what we're talking about. No.
You get what I'm saying? Like some of that stuff's okay. You know, I mean, I don't.
But I just want to go. I want to finish my point. So I kept everybody hanging out there. Who am I talking about? Well, people know who I'm talking about. So the guy running the UAP meeting on Capitol Hill, you know, he introduces it with, and thank you very much for Mr. Blah, blah, blah for helping us out today.
Mm-hmm. Corbell, wasn't it? That was Andre Carson thanking Jeremy Corbell, I think it was, for helping them out by supplying footage for these hearings.
The triangle footage, pretty much.
Right. The stuff that Corbell had been shouting about on social media for months before that, saying, this is the best footage ever. It's been leaked to me. He was trying to play the same thing that Lou Elizondo had done with the footage. You know, he's trying to get that same media.
One thing this guy needs to understand, and anybody's associated with.
I think it failed, though, right? Because those hearings were a bust.
Man,
right?
whether it's alien implants being removed from your body, whether it's Skinwalker Ranch being a real place of any mystery or not, whether it's Bob Lazar being a real a person who actually worked on an alien spacecraft and that dealt with element 115, which Ron, by the way, is going to explain that this 115 means almost nothing. And there's Joe Rogan going, yeah, element 115. Wait till Joe gets schooled, and I mean schooled, by Ufolotics, the movie I'm making. I'll be proud to say to Joe, hopefully on his show, there's nothing wrong with what happened to you. You got bamboozled, but get the unboozlement started. Get going here. The same way you thought we didn't go to the moon, we went to the moon. Maybe there's some weird shit about the moon. I'll agree. I did aliens on the moon, right? So, but I'm not saying we didn't go to the moon. I sat with Buzz Aldrin for 3 hours at his home. Another one of my producers sat with Edgar Mitchell. These people are not clowns. They're real astronauts. They really walked the freaking moon. Now, hold on. So if you're the guy telling people that you're going to weaponize your imagination and curiosity and you're going to do all this stuff, but you have no boss, it's just you. Did you go to journalism school?
There's no check or balance to the content. Like you said, it's not like working for a television network where there's a standards and practices who's going to say, hey, that doesn't float. You can't say that. You don't have the evidence of this. You know, you're going to get us in trouble. These people don't have that. Nobody has that. It's kind of like...
But I'll make a statement. If the 5 movies that we're going to finish tonight talking about, 4 in the UFO category totally, are going to reset, in my opinion. And the goal here is to reset the field of researching UFOs. Let's reset it. And let's reset it properly by giving the right review of all the evidence to date that's worth mentioning, and then put the things that are not in any way worthwhile in the trash bin. Then we get rid of that and we move forward. And with any luck, this generation, my children, their children, will get to know the answer about what UFOs as a mystery really are. But just to be able to make money on it and take advantage of people's curiosity, that's not cool. And in my view, when you're dealing with the aerospace mystery, which is what UFOs are, and you're dealing with possible nuclear weapons mixed in there, and you'll be hearing about that in Ufolotics in the movie, this is going to be an important movie for anybody interested in UFOs to see. This is going to be one of those movies, Manny, you cannot miss.
Well, I won't miss it for sure. I'll be there.
Manny's going to be more involved than he's just saying, but that's okay. Because we recruited Manny, but when we saw Manny, we went, who's Lou? What happened was Art Levine was in a show I did called World's Greatest Hoaxes, Secrets Finally Revealed, where we exposed the alien autopsy, finally, after 3 years of research. The famous Bigfoot Patterson film, we thought was fake. We're not changing it, but there have been some wrinkles we'll get into later. The Billy Meyer UFO cult, extremely dangerous. And we debunked some other things in this movie. Now, in this TV special for Fox, I mean. We interviewed a guy named Art Levine. who gave us from U.S. News and Rural Report. This is a major magazine of the day back then, right? U.S. News and Rural Report was like where you get your straight news. You get your news now on a weekly basis, the biggest stories around the world, U.S. and Rural Report, right? So Art Levine was a contributing writer. So we invited him on the show. He did a beautiful job of explaining. I remember Art's so funny. It's like, people will believe, or whatever he's saying, but you can't believe everything you see. You got to look at things objectively, right? So Art became sort of a contact I had for years. And he told me that he was writing an article about my deep dive into all this new UFO issues that are going on because of my background in the field as a science journalist, writer, producer. And he said, Bob, you need to meet somebody named Manny. He did an incredible job with a thing called Who's Lou. I went, about Elizondo? He says, yeah. The second I watched it, I contacted Manny. He's one of us. Manny's like a journalist. Manny is a natural. It's one of those things, where you get a guy at the a reporter desk at a newspaper, and you know right away, this kid is a journalist. You just know. So you don't have to have maybe 9 degrees from, Columbia Journalism School. You could be just a gumshoe, smart guy who knows what's going on, and like a detective, Manny is, put together a detective's kind of track of Lou Elizondo, which stellar. Art was right. So Art's credibility as a former writer of U.S. News and Report, contributing editor writer, gave him the credibility with me. When he says something like, you got to check out Manny's Who's Lou, I was like, I got to run right over there. So I think I was watching it within minutes after he told me that. And so Manny, since that day, we've been connected, and Manny's been helping get these things going. So that gives you an overview. How much time did it take to do that? That's an overview of where we are today.
Right. And so now we're working on these different projects, Politics being one of them, which is going to expose a lot of the different political agendas, or not agendas, but the machinations, everything that's going on with these people.
Can I tell you people how Politics got its name? So I went to a meeting at Discovery Communications, a very good, very nice and intelligent executive who I like a lot, actually. And, he was so interested in my take on this whole New York Times story that I had the CIA contact, and I was basically getting to the inside truth of who Elizondo and Putoff are in connection to each other, and all this whole thing, being a techno scam and all that stuff. And we'll get into that if you want before we end tonight. But what was I just saying? I was pushing thought for a second. I was trying to explain the. I'm trying to explain just now something. Whenever I get thinking about where I get my information from, like the CIA or whatever, I may lose my train of thought for a second. But Andrew. So Andrew, wonderful executive at Discovery. I'm making this pitch, and by the way, he's still interested. We're not done yet. But I made a deal now to do it with Screen Media instead. So he says to me after the meeting, he says, Bob, this reminds me, and we're sitting in the building in New York, and he says, this reminds me of a show on, like a political show I watch a lot. This is like UFOs and politics, and you're behind the scenes, and that could be a really great show. We should really talk about developing it like that. So on the plane home from New York to LA, where I live, I came up with the term ufolotics. And to me, he named it in the room, so to speak. Bob, you're combining UFOs and politics, and on the plane, I'm a writer. I'm going, ufolotics. So basically, ufolotics was born in a meeting at Discovery, which used to be into science, and it was Discovery Science Channel. I was meeting with Andrew, who was at the Discovery Science Channel. So we understand this. So the evolution of ufolotics has a great kind of beginning, and I think it's important for people to understand that.
Someone said, nice job, Manny, on the Who's Lou. Such a great doc. Thank you, UFO John Doe.
He's right.
Yeah, it took a lot
Among
of
the
time
best
and
I've ever seen.
research to do that, I spent a good amount of time just diving into different facts and running down different leads and excluding information or including it. It took some time to get that all done, but when it all came together, I felt like it was a pretty good piece. It got kind of a bum rap in the,
Pretty
you know,
good.
yeah, I mean, they did a pretty good smear job on it online and social media and used some pretty underhanded tactics to try to keep the information
Well,
out of
wait, hold
people's
on.
hands. But
Let's defend you a little bit here. There is not one writer in journalism, especially in journalism, that doesn't have things when they were younger. Could be anything from getting a certain ticket to a misunderstood event or whatever. Nobody is perfect. Okay.
yeah,
To be
well,
able to pull out some thing that happened in someone's past and try to diminish the quality of what you did in this who's Lou is it's beyond the pale. It's so
I think it
far
was
beyond.
telling. The response was telling. When someone has to sink
Exactly.
to a certain low to respond to something instead of just responding to the facts that are in it. I mean, that tells you that this guy will do anything to get out of answering the questions that I asked in that movie. And that was one of the motivators for me was to keep it online and to keep it up there because people need to see that. Even if only 10,000, 11,000 people have seen it, that's enough because it gets around, and people will come back and watch that
So
maybe in the future.
let me turn this around for a minute on you, Manny. For a minute, I'll be the interviewer for a second. So who has continued to rail against you? Anybody else from the TTSA Lou Elizondo scam? Have they been continuing to give you headaches, or has that kind of died down?
No, there was a pretty nasty social media campaign for a few months, a defamatory one, which honestly I couldn't do anything about because I don't have the money to hire a hotshot defamation attorney like Todd McMurdy, and he didn't want to take my case pro bono.
That's a tough
So
thing to prove, by the way. Defamation is one of the toughest.
yeah, I know it's funny. It's funny though, but
It's a tough
no.
thing.
So, but no. After that, it just the last few months, what it turned into was an organized blackballing, where 40 or 50 people in the field who all of the top Lou Elizondos and those types of people have all just started blocking me and banning me and kind of trying to shut me out, deplatform me is what they're trying to do. But I guess the joke's on them because I never watched any of that stuff anyways. Like really don't want to watch Jimmy Turch and his little sidekicks run around and talk.
Well, I
That guy
warned
doesn't
Jimmy. In
really.
fact, yeah, if you want to mention Jimmy for a minute, I warned Jimmy on his own show during the buildup of this whole TTSA nonsense to be careful and to accept nothing. And he was pretty much agreeing that he would not be, patting these guys on the back. But obviously, he's out there trying to sell some radio or whatever time he's selling. So all I can tell you is right now, Jimmy was warned. Jimmy was warned on his own air. Anybody could listen to the archives and hear. And if he ended up continuing with these clowns, even though everything's proven to be exactly what I told him, it wasn't like I'm the greatest journalist in the world. I was getting it directly from people that know how put off 40 years, 30 years, have watched his machinations in The Menace, Derek Coates. Ghost, by the way, anybody want to see a great movie? Not really a great movie, but a great movie.
I think it's hilarious. I love that film. It's done well. It's got a nice style. Like the production
Maybe I
level's
need to see
great.
it again. Manny, I'll agree. Maybe I need to see it again because when I saw it, I went, they're lampooning the psychic Stargate research crap that we know is fake. So I just got a bad attitude, but I need to watch it again. I do watch it again because we know, there's someone we know that is somewhat involved in movies and things that we don't quite get what he's doing, and we're going to be getting into it. And unfortunately, it ties into something else we talked about today, which we won't get into too much, but I want people to know, for me, truth is all I care about. I only am looking for truth. If I have to go through some bumpy roads to get there, I just want to get there. But if someone lies to me and tries to BS me, I'm not going to go back to the well for more from that person or that source. And that's what some people have done.
Yeah, life's too short for that. You don't have time for that. You got to go work with people who are trying to work with you and trying to, have common goals and common ethics.
It was shocking to find out, though, that, and I did back in the day, that the same company that had pulled off the Noah's Ark hoax was still selling their shows to the network. It was like, you should be like blacklisted right that moment and be done, and then go out and do what Dan Rather said. Dan Rather said it well, and Manny, I bring this up for a reason. Remember, I'm sitting in the Fox president's office, John Matoyan, and Mike Darnell's sitting there right with me. And they're saying, we're really worried. We're really worried. This alien autopsy could be my neck. It could be like the Noah's Ark thing. And I'm like, no, John, listen. This is a story. It's a mystery. We treat it like a mystery. We cover it. And everyone here should know that we had a plan in the summer of 95. If we discovered it was a fraud during the production, we were going to rush a special on from Channel 11, Fox KTTV here in LA, and send it all around the rest of the country on the Fox affiliates as a breaking news special. The film you heard about is a fraud. Before we had a special scheduled. Forget that. We were going to make it a not a documentary, a breaking news report on a network that doesn't even have a news division. But we were going to go work with KTV, the local station here, and we were going to work with their anchors. We had a plan. We knew that we might debunk it from my own work during the actual production. We couldn't do that. So we aired our special, and Jonathan Frakes from Star Trek told all the viewers, I wrote the words for him. He said it, until we know more, you'll have to decide for yourself, but we'll keep you updated. And that's what we did. That's how you take a mystery, you take it off the table, and you deal with it. You take it out of the marketplace, and you deal with it as journalists. And then you try your best to unravel it and give it to the public. Some people have attacked me for, why don't you wait to do the investigation and then air it? Well, why? We watch investigation on television every day. We see news magazines doing it every day. They don't conclude anything. Maybe they'll just do the first week of a trial. Maybe they'll just do the first few months of an investigation. They don't cover from A to Z, but we did. Chicago Tribune gave us a lot of credit for that, and I appreciated that. The Chicago Tribune, a very well-known newspaper, very credible, wrote a whole part. For Robert Kiviat, the truth is out there. But for me, they were saying I was more skeptical than Mulder from the X-Files. Of course I am. And Mulder believed everything. He was kind of a loony bird, but I'm more like Scully.
Right. Yeah, I'm definitely a more pragmatic kind of viewpoint is one that I hold, just to try to work through things logically when you see them. Just the other night, actually, I was sitting here in the house and I heard this strange noise outside, and I go running outside, and there's a bright green flash down to the south, and then I hear this wah-boom. It sounded like the War of the Worlds drone from the movies. That horn.
Whoa.
Yeah, so I was like, what the heck is that? And on the second one, I thought, oh, they're Transformers, and there was a line of them going off. Pop, and one Transformer.
Right. Those
wow.
Martians. Yeah, they sound like those.
Yeah, it was really loud and deep and rumbling in it, but after the second one, I just knew. I was like, no, these are Transformers. But I've seen Transformers blow up on video. I've never been standing next to one, not next to it, but within eyesight of one when it happened. But it was an interesting thing to experience. And I could see how if someone didn't know what that was, would just be shocked by it and scared, and might take a video of it or put it out there, and be like, whoa, what is this?
Well, but I was hoping you might ask me, like, after Ufologics, where are you going with that? So Ufologics is going to be the beginning of clearing the BS up. Separate, like Carl Sagan said years ago, separate the wheat from the chaff. Let's figure out what's really credible fact and not fiction. Let's get through that. And then let's look at what we have on the UFO historical docket here that is possibly unexplainable craft from unknown, either galaxies, countries, dimensions, we don't know, and start getting it back to that, so that when Congress is brought back into this in the future, there are credible, respectful investigations that have led to the congressional groups getting involved, so that when they look at the new material being presented in 2027 or 8 or whatever we're talking about, there will be a real movement of this mystery, and it hasn't moved at all. In fact, I will tell you this, I believe UFOs have taken a huge back seat in popularity. According to the Fox network, we talked about doing ufologics at the Fox network, back where I did all my shows, and I was told very clearly 2 months ago, they checked the popularity of UFO programming. It's taken a hit. It's taken a hit. The public is not stupid. I have probably, my manager actually mentioned this to me in the last few months. He believes over 1 billion people have watched my shows around the world. 10 shows, 3 or 4 dealt with UFOs pretty seriously. 1 billion people. Okay? I take that pretty seriously around the world. If I'm going to affect the thinking and minds of 1 billion people, then I better be on my game. I better be up to speed on this job, right? I better do my job, right?
Yeah, and at that point, don't you feel like, I mean, you personally feel like you have a responsibility to those people,
Still do.
don't you?
To
Exactly.
this
You
day.
know,
Right.
it's
And
it's not, yeah, it's not just a user base to exploit for ticket sales or whatever, like some of these people do. You have a responsibility, and some of those people are going to want to learn from you to learn how to hold a higher standard, how to be investigative, how to go out and do stuff like that.
I appreciate you saying that. I'm going to say it now before I jump into the 4 movies. Why are these the 4 movies? Well, politics is the one to clear up everything and then show where the thinking should be. What are the cases, the kind of cases we should be looking at that truly should make impact on Capitol Hill? Like even this Republican guy, Representative Gallagher, said at that UAP hearing in May. Nuclear cases, UFOs involving nuclear facilities. Yeah, like serious, like, but not fake BS from a guy named Eric Davis, who's a BS artist like no one.
Who just happens to work for Hal Puthoff, by the way, right?
Who happens to be Hal Puthoff's like
That
number
Earth
1
tech,
guy.
Yeah.
Hello. It's like, could anyone not hear BS knocking at the door? I mean, come on, right? So my thinking is, if the responsibility is to give 1 billion people interested in UFOs and that kind of mystery the best evidence, the best kind of reporting, then you should do it whether you're Bob Kiviat or anybody else. Why should you get away with doing what you mentioned before, some sensational stuff, and maybe you make a few $1 million, whatever you make. Maybe I don't make that. Okay, shucks, I don't make that money. But you know what? I'm doing the job. I think that's the credible job that should be done. It's not less interesting. In fact, I'll put my next movies up against anything that's been out there before or since. And I'm telling you right now, these will be riveting movies about fascinating cases that involve video that NASA can't explain, the military and NASA analyze and cannot explain. It's not theirs. They know there's not governmental videos or video being leaked from Chris Mellon. By the way, why would a guy who has more money than anyone can even explain, why would he even get involved in something like this? What is the reason someone even leaves the governmental job you had, whatever, for either you had a job, and then you get into this and you point to a fake Mylar balloon and say it's a UFO? I mean, why would you want to embarrass yourself like that? What is the motivation? So the last 5 years of UFOs that I've been sitting, observing and watching through my ufologics development made me realize there are 3 other cases that are among the best ever. And they're known because I broke them in my own shows, first at Unsolved Mysteries, and then at my own shows on the Fox Network. And they are, in this order, the Guardian UFO landing in Canada, which is an incredible case we can get into anytime tonight or whenever you like. The Mexico UFO solar eclipse, July 11, 1991 event, where flying saucers were recorded over 4 different cities simultaneously by different cameras, different craft. It's like an invasion. And that was part of the biggest UFO wave maybe ever of UFOs caught on tape in Mexico. Anywhere, but it happened in Mexico. And then the other big case is this Area 51 video that no one has been able to explain. It appears to be some kind of invading craft that came over the Nellis Range, literally happened during military observing, and this thing came and visited and moved in ways that we've never seen on tape, not like the UAPs that don't do anything amazing. This does something that's incredible. It morphs into different shapes. It moves like 6 miles in like 10 seconds. It's like ridiculous, okay? I think the estimation we estimated was something like in the thousands of miles an hour. So, and you hear the audio track. You hear the people at the Nellis Range control room. Oh, what's that? I don't know. What are you saying? What is that? The audio. So different than, wee! Got it!
Dude, these are drones, bro. I know.
Look, I may be sounding like I'm on my own soapbox tonight, but I am. And so the
Yeah.
point is that we're raising money for these movies too. So people need to understand that. I mean, the deal that people are getting these days to make these documentaries and bring them to the public. I'm proud to say the company here has made it clear, even though they've made a good amount of money with documentaries of some kind that maybe weren't vetted by any kind of journalistic source. Okay, they made a lot of money, but they want to kind of pull it in, get things a little more concise here and work with people that have the credibility in the work that I've done. So they kind of more or less came to me once I came to them, and they said, you know what? We'd love to get your quality of work involved with us. And maybe that will change things a little, Manny. I always believe that if you if you want to, let's say you have a cup of dirty water, the best way to get that clean, keep pouring the clean water in. And eventually you pour that clean water, it dilutes out that dirt, right? And eventually you got a clean glass, right? So maybe my water getting thrown in there will be clean water, cleaning a little bit.
Yeah.
I hope. And that's where we're headed. So if anybody wants to talk about those things, the question from Steve would be, we're hoping it'll be released sometime like next summer. That's probably the best case scenario right now. We want to be in production. Here's the goal. We want to interview Ron first, and the funding for that is being put together. So if anybody wants to know how they can be involved in the opportunity, and just for maybe, for a few $1,000s, you can involve yourself and have participation in these movies. And the ufologics one is the first one we really want. So we're opening up an investor pool, and Manny's showing this now. It's a prospectus given out to investors. And if you scroll up to the top, Manny, you can get the top of it. They can see what it is. So it's an investor prospectus. It's written for every kind of, investment person, private equity, even if you're just an individual who likes to invest a little bit in Hollywood production type things. Here's an opportunity to be part of something. The next 4 big movies, The Mandela Effect also is a great idea, but it's not UFO related. That's about, it appears some things in our society have been changed by, we don't even know what. Could be CERN, the particle collider, could be certain things. So we can talk about The Mandela Effect a different night, Manny. But today, at least for the 5 movies dealing with UFOs, ufologics and the 3 others, I think it's important people to know you can invest in this. You can get a full prospectus tonight or tomorrow. We're only going to keep the investment opportunity open for another week or 2, but you can definitely get involved. So let us know. I mean, if you're really interested in being part of the production, seeing how it works, you can even be behind the scenes. This is not crowdfunding, okay? You invest, let's say you invest $1,000 or $10,000. You get back 30% from the revenues from the movie right off the top before the producers, and then you get profit participation equal to your percentage. So if you bought 1%, let's say, you might see a few $1,000s every quarter, and then it builds. So what I'm saying to you is it's in perpetuity. It would happen over the time of your life. The movie, you'll be locked in for the rest of its existence, and people don't get that opportunity a lot. And the good news is you have a good journalistic outfit like mine making these. So, and a great company, Screen Media, that just acquired the other company that was doing the other documentaries. So I think Screen Media is going to be a great kind of like channeler of some of what I'm talking about. Credibility, exciting stories, but not taking advantage of people's interest and just putting out whatever they think is going to sell out there. And then you never can blame the distributor too much. You always have to blame the people who make the product. Even CBS with the Noah's Ark, to be honest with you. I mean, most of the blame goes to the producers who made that. Period. The end. Okay? Sun Classics should be anointed into the shame of fame, Hall of Shame of television. And maybe not as much as CBS people, more, them. But anyway, yeah, this is what it is. So, and you go down, man, let them see how they can see the breakdowns, how profits are figured out. Mandela Effect clearly was a movie that we already started getting the funding on, so it's the closest one finished. But Ufologics looks like it may jump into the starting position even. So we're looking at Ufologics as being the first movie potentially, only because it's just a matter of the interview with the scientist in Washington, D.C. area and all that. Maybe we have to kind of move on that. That's a kind of important thing to have done. So that's it. But beyond that, I'm up to any questions, any ideas, anybody wants to share. I'm all there. And then again, there's a video, maybe, Manny, and we can show them the video if you want, and that will be the way they can see it. And this is what's going out to the investment community right now in New York and in California. And a lot of my work is shown here in the history. And you can see young me on some of these news shows. You can see what I was always doing. Time Magazine covered, me a little differently than other people. Chicago Tribune talking about me being like the guy from the X-Files, but really more skeptical. And then I appear on all these news shows talking about my work. Never not journalists. I'm always going on shows that are journalists. And this is the famous Guardian tape right there that Robert Stack from the famous show Unsolved Mysteries. Never, ever did Robert Stack ever hold a UFO video and say, this video might be, And so that's why it's a fascinating thing I put there for people to see. That in this episode, I actually played the Guardian. I'm in the recreation. We had an amazing video of what looks like a landed UFO, but they still wanted to make a recreation using the actual video in some way. So I play the Guardian. You'll see me. I'm the guy coming with the camera. We don't know who Guardian is. Guardian put a thumbprint. If you blow up that image, people at home can blow that up and pretty much see a fingerprint on that. And the fingerprint is Guardian saying, when you find me, this will be who I am. So the fingerprint is on that. Now, Robert may be covering it. It may be burnt out, but all you got to do is watch the episode. So the episode is available. It's part of the prospectus. Anybody can see it anytime they want. So that's who we are. And then I did my own version of that on Fox Network, a short little segment, nothing like we did Unsolved Mysteries. This was the highest rated, the Guardian story, the Guardian UFO landing, as we call it, or they call it the Canadian UFO Guardian landing, whatever. Highest rated moment maybe ever on television in America dealing with UFOs. Higher than Alien Autopsy as well. This was literally 1 out of 4 televisions in America were on it. Imagine that. 1 out of 4 televisions.
It's a lot of viewership, yeah. Yep. And a lot of exposure for this sighting.
The Guardian case has been misrepresented by so many people. No one's ever done a piece on it like we did back at Unsolved Mysteries. And it was a 15-minute segment that could have been a movie, as everybody knew. And I'm finally going to make that movie. And you're going to learn about why NASA thought it was so incredible, why everyone from the government levels that I'm telling you in Canada and America were amazed by this case. And you can get an idea from it if we play the video. You can.
Yeah, I've got the trailer or the Slate video queued up, so we can play that for everybody.
Yeah, you'll get an idea. did some great work with this too, by the way, everyone should know. And the thing that I want people to know mostly, Manny, is that most people are aware of these cases, but they've never really gotten the answers. And that's the kind of thing we learned about years ago when I was with Unsolved. And by the way, I spoke to Terry Muir, who's a wonderful executive producer and was my boss years ago. And she was really, really warm about this. And she liked the idea that I was moving forward on these movies. And we talked about giving Unsolved Mysteries some credit here. And they should. I mean, they took me on back years ago and they said, Bob, where do you, her partner, John, once came to me and she said, Bob, where do you come from? Where'd you get this stuff? Like, what's going on with you? I said, John, I'm just a journalist. I wrote an article for Omni Magazine recently. And when you see that, you realize that it didn't come out yet. I said, it's coming out next year. And you'll see that I'm just a journalist trying to get to the truth of this stuff. And he was like, he walked away from me like I was a Martian. But, there aren't a lot of people, Manny. There are many journalists that literally would rather jump off a bridge before covering UFOs, And I think what happens is they thought UFOs, ghosts, the unexplained are things that you just kill your career with. And I'll never forget Mark, my old mentor, Mark, great guy in New York. I don't think he wants to mention his name. Top CBS News producer, formerly ABC News producer. He's one of my dear friends. And he sent me something last night, Manny, and I'm going to send it to you later. We have Dan Aykroyd talking about Bruce Maccabee. But he sent me something else, Michio Kaku, getting all, chummy with Joe Rogan about these UAP videos and how maybe it changed his mind. And I'll never forget, Michio Kaku came in my show I did for Fox years ago called Ghost Caught on Tape. And he analyzed 3 videos, the only 3 that were worth anything, worth a real ghost or anything. 3 really mysterious videos, I must say. One of them was in Ecuador. One of them was in Sao Paulo, Brazil. And it's a ghost light flying around the city. Everyone in Sao Paulo, Brazil thought it was a ghost light flying around. It was recently put into another document, whatever, and they called it a UFO. And I'm thinking Michio thought it was a ghost light. But Michio loved the ghost videos we showed him. Very critical. But now I'm wondering, here he is now, years later, just like getting sucked into this whole UAP thing. I'll be calling Michio, having a little discussion with Michio, and I'll say, look, let's go on with Joe Rogan together. Let's have a come to Jesus moment here. Let's talk reality here. And what I also don't understand is Michael Shermer, a trained, almost to the point of absurdity, skeptic, who's getting pushed around by Joe Rogan a little to the point where he's going, well, you know what? Maybe Michio Kaku is making a change, and maybe Michio is starting to think UFOs are real. Michael Shermer, shame on you. I mean, come on, dude. I mean, just because the public is seemingly more interested because of a couple of, I don't know, articles that were written about some gullible people on Capitol Hill, and what a nightmare. I don't know what to say. But look, I'll be honest. I would love to help Joe out because Joe Rogan did a series on Sci-Fi Channel a few years ago. And Sci-Fi, after I developed a show with them called Fact or Fake years ago, they asked me to consult and kind of keep that Joe Rogan Investigate show somewhat within the boundaries of journalistic objectivity. But they didn't call me there, Manny. Joe never said, hey, I got Michio coming. Hey, I got Michael Shermer coming. Hey, Joe's out there doing his thing. So, but if Joe wants to hear the real deal, he'll be wanting to know about ufologics, Ron's interview, and the 4 movies coming out.
Yeah. So that's the Invasion of the Flying Saucers was the greatest mass UFO sighting ever caught on camera. That was another one that you wanted to look at that was from 1991, right? That was
So basically what happened was in the early 90s, the solar eclipse on July 11, 1991, it's considered to be, to this day, the greatest celestial spectacle we've had in the last 200 years. It was a total eclipse of the sun in many parts of the world. So the place that this occurred in Mexico was when it was a total solar eclipse at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Wow. So it turned completely black. But imagine, everybody's got their cameras out to record the eclipse, even with protective eye stuff and everything else. They're out there to record the eclipse. And while they're recording the eclipse, these 4 silver discs appear over 4 different cities. Now, the size of those craft is debatable. The movement is not. You saw some of it right there in the promo. The cameraman literally is a TV executive. He's on the rooftop of his building getting ready to film the eclipse. And all of a sudden he sees this flying saucer and he zooms in on it. And while he zooms in on it, it drops down and starts maneuvering. So anybody who says this, I love the skeptics, Manny. Some say it was stars in the sky. I'm like, yeah. How many stars come and float over your city and like move around and like literally like come right toward your camera? During one of the events that happened in the weeks preceding and months after, a military show was going on. 2 UFOs appeared each of those different events. I mean, how can people don't know about this, right? So when we aired it on Unsolved Mysteries, it was breaking news. It just happened a couple of years before. I aired it on Fox, a larger segment, because we had more time to cover it. That was 10 minutes. Now we're doing an hour and a half movie on it. And you're going to realize when you see this, Manny, and you'll be involved with it, I'm sure, but when other people see it, they're going to realize that this was an event that should be talked about to this day. Top expert at NASA, who also analyzed the Guardian video and could not explain the Guardian video either, he felt the only explanation, Dr. Robert Nathan at Jet Propulsion Laboratory, the only explanation is that some people with some very clever technology wanted to stage a grandiose fraud hoax in front of masses of people because they knew, as he says in my own show on the Fox show, there you have people with their cameras out. What a wonderful time to stage a hoax. However, in all the years since, not one piece of evidence that was a hoax. No one ever came out and said we were testing governmental drones, whatever. What's interesting is in 2003, 12 years later, people are going to see in this movie a flying saucer recorded over Phoenix, not too far from Mexico. It looks like the next generation of what you see over Mexico. So it might well be technology from here. No one's saying these flying saucers. I was very careful to say flying saucers for a reason. These are clearly craft. These are clearly flying. They're clearly
and saucer shaped. Yeah,
right.
definitely.
So in other words, they're beyond UFOs. We can identify a lot about them. We can see a lot. What we don't know is where they came from, how they left. Oh, by the way, also Unsen, Japan. In Unsen, Japan, a few months later, a very similar video was shot. So what we have probably is either the greatest expansion of drone technology that we've still never seen the latest results of. Bob Lazar and these guys have talked about things being tested at Area 51. Right. Tested at Area 51. Right. So maybe the thing I'm showing in Area 51 is some kind of I guess it could be our own government, but I don't know if
it could be an advanced drone or a decoy or one of the things that we suspect the Nimitz encounter filmed. It could be one of those things.
I would never even put the Nimitz stuff anywhere near this. This is like over a military base. Cameras are ready. They're out there trying to keep their own, experiments going. And some interloper comes in out of nowhere and freaks them out. That's clearly caught on tape, the audio. And where the tape came from a military pilot who got the tape and took it. He's in my Fox special in silhouette. And
that's important to have the origins of this evidence,
hold on. So the reason why there's a reason why you see that last on the reel, Manny. I have the gentleman who is the guy who brought the video to the world, who took it from Area 51. He didn't shoot it. He wasn't involved in the shooting of it. He's not agreed to come on camera yet. I tracked him down. I have his military discharge papers, Manny. Nellis Range. He's the real deal, But the problem here is that he re-enlisted and he got involved in the Iraq War and he had some post-traumatic stress. and he doesn't know if he wants to come out and get going on this whole new coming out party that I'm trying to do on some of these cases. But we hope we'll see him. I believe we will.
Yeah.
But I may need to, cajole him a little bit. I'm very confident. By the way, any producer that puts it on a slate like that, he's confident that he's going to get him to come.
Nice. So we've got the ufologics, the Mandela effect, the invasion of the flying saucers, the Guardian UFO, and then the Area 51 saucer encounter. So there's the full slate of 5 different projects that you're working on coming up into the next year and first is obviously, like you said, you're focusing on the ufologics and the Mandela effect because those are already in production.
Yeah, those are the press release that's going out. I thought it would go out by now. Maybe the holidays held it up. The press release of Screen Media that you can read about in major publications coming out probably in the next couple of days is going to announce the Mandela effect first, only because that's the one we kind of bonded on in the first meetings with Screen Media. But then ufologics is mentioned too. So we leave out the other 3 for now. But the ufologics is mentioned. So it wouldn't be strange, in my view, if ufologics jumped ahead as a release before the other one. It could be released at the same time. The different subjects, I mean, they could be released. Ultimately, producers want, the reason why we're seeking some investment funding right now, tonight, hoping people will contact me or you after the streamcast, is we want to move very fast to interview Ron in the CIA area. And then we want to build out that show to lead to the other ones. So, we're very far along on Mandela effect, but we really want to get ufologics up and running. And the faster we get some investment from people in the field who really care about this, I'm going to make one comment that may make people upset, but it's okay. This whole idea of crowdfunding a movie, it's sort of disingenuous because if you really want people to invest in your movie, like I'm asking, why wouldn't I want you to participate in the profits? It's only natural.
As opposed to crowdsourcing where they're just donating their money to get your film made. Yeah,
they promise to give you a hat,
difference. Yeah.
Give you a hat, maybe invite you to the party at someone's house to watch it. I don't even know what we're talking about. I would say it's pretty close to thievery, in my opinion. That's just my view. And the reason why I say thievery is you're taking advantage of people's feelings about wanting to get something out as the only reason they're doing it.
Well, and it could be used that way, but it could also be used for legitimate purposes too. I mean, and people, if you market it properly so that people aren't being tricked into it or something, or like you said, you're not being predatory about who you're picking to fund these things. I can see a lot of people who would volunteer to get a movie made, or want to see a movie made so much they might throw $100 or $1,000 or whatever.
I'm making the analogy that if you're Stephen Greer and you go out and tell people there's an alien invasion coming, but guess what? They're not going to be aliens. They're going to be our own government, reverse engineering UFOs, and you make money off of the money other people crowdfunded. That sounds criminal to me.
Yeah.
I'll tell you my perspective. In Hollywood, when we started seeing the crowdfunding start, here's how we heard about it. Let's say a movie came out years ago, whatever, and no one in Hollywood wants to make it. But there are fans who really want to see that movie made. They want to go and see that movie. They want to go enjoy that with their kids, and maybe the kids weren't around when the first one came out. Okay, they give their money, maybe a few $1 million is raised, and I can give the anytime you want which movie we're talking about. And that was the beginning of this. If you go back to the early days of which was the first crowdfunding company? I
don't know.
It's on the tip of my thumb. What's the number one even now? There's like the one that started it. I forget the name of it. But that's the one that got everybody aware of it. It was a movie made about maybe 20 years later, 12 years after the original, and they wanted the movie made. That same technique is used now for a passion project for a few $1,000s, and now we find out someone claiming he's got proof, the United States government, not only that UFOs are real and they're from another planet, but we have reverse engineered crashed ones, and we're going to use them to stage a mock alien invasion to manipulate the society.
Yeah, the alien recreation vehicles and all that
And
stuff.
people go, yeah, Steve, I want to see that movie. How much money can I put in? And here's your hat.
Yeah.
I mean, this does not sound right to me. And by the way, that's BS. There is no evidence at all that we even recovered a craft, much less reverse engineered one. And not only that, built a fleet of them. Now, look, what a great story.
Yeah, it's a great story, but that's all it is. It's a story.
Get a bunch of people to say there's credibility to that story.
Yeah.
And you make a movie. So where are we now? So tonight is my moment to say to people, it's a wonderful story, but like Manny says, there are science fiction writers everywhere. That's not even that good a science fiction story when you look at it that way.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not even that good, but it's a science fiction story. Let me tell you one other story, Manny, and I want people to know this, and I don't care if he hears it or not. I was at Unsolved Mysteries working. Some guy came in who I knew. Tagging along in the meeting is Stephen Greer. Who are you? Stephen Greer. And you are? I'm an EMT guy. I'm a guy helping medical stuff, but you know what? I'm going to be a big UFO researcher. Great. But why and how? And I'm going to be. So he had an agenda to be this guy.
So Dr. Greer set out to intentionally create this persona that he is. He came to you and said, I want to break into this field. I want to be this UFO guy.
In my office in Toluca Lake, California, in the same office Howard Gordon walked out with my files.
And for what? Did he believe in it, or was it for the celebrity status?
He said he was going to be the guy to bring the truth and devote his life to this. Which is great. But I'm sitting there going, well, I'm in the field. I'm doing this for television and for the viewers. And it's a very bold statement you got there, buddy. And you didn't come in invited to this meeting. Number two, who comes to meetings that you're not invited to?
Apparently he did.
I mean, what am I going to do? They had a very nice office there. It's built like a home. I would have had to walk him through the lobby, walk him out the back door. I mean, there aren't many people I want to throw out of my office.
Yeah.
Besides him. Now, if that's not an agenda to take advantage of people and interest, to claim that's your goal, it sounds on the surface okay. But when you throw in the crowdfunding nonsense, I mean, do what I'm doing. Go to people and say, look, I'm making a movie. If I make any money, you'll be part of it.
And that's actually ties into what Steve Long said here. He was asking how this investment in opportunity differs from the way TTSA is funding their films.
TTSA is, I love the question, Steve. TTSA is offering nothing. They're a stock scheme. They're asking you to put money into their hands because they're claiming they're going to build a starship to the universe. But guess what? They'll sell you a cup, a shirt, whatever, on a daily basis, and I'll send you my emails any day of the week. There's a reason why Congressman Beatty in Ohio called it out her favorite example of Regulation A+ stock maneuvering and manipulation. The SEC needs to look into TTSA. Anybody who put money into that, my guess is you'll never see it again. And number two, I believe someone you know, Manny, has given you information, and it's out there, and I don't want to quote it because it's not my right to do that, but one of the people involved in TTSA, very principally, has wondered aloud whether Mr. DeLong and company might be getting a knock from the SEC and the official legal people on Wall Street. So what you're saying is three different things, Steve. There's Stephen Greer. He's making movies, docs, whatever you want to call them, science fiction things with your money. Good for you. You want to supply that guy? Make him into a bigger ego maniac than he is right now? Good luck for you. Number two, you got me. I have a deal with Screen Media. I have the background in network television as a journalist with credibility because I've worked for the networks and know they need credibility. You need to do a good job so broadcast standards doesn't go, Nice job, Bob. We're not airing your piece of crap. Thank you. Goodbye. They could do that. Fox could do it. NBC could do it. They could say, we thought you were doing a good job, whatever. We watched your movie. There's no credibility. Sorry. I always have to worry about things like that as a producer. Who are these people coming along with nobody to boss them, no one to give them anything? Fine.
Yeah.
But free media wants me to be more of a real professional journalist, producer, and do a job. That's fine. That's why I bought them.
Yeah.
Let's get to the third one.
I'll get to the third one, yeah.
TTSA. Just a stock scheme. They can say whatever they want. We're going to build a craft to the moon, to Mars, the universe. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to get more videos out of the government. You're never going to see your money again.
Right.
When are you going to see your money again? Tell me when.
If people watched my breakdown on them, they'll know that there's, the stock payout on that's next to nothing because of the diluted share values from them giving themselves a bunch of stock. And that's the same thing that goes with their movie. If the movie's even owned by TTSA, if it's not actually owned by, a different part of the company, like Tom DeLonge or the Hollywood execs that he brought in, who Miser and what's his name, Stan Spry, who may even, they might actually own it because they might have been the ones to actually.
Why don't you invite them on your show, Manny?
So,
why don't you have them come on next week?
Oh, I don't know if they want to talk to me, but yeah, I think the movie's still going to come out. I mean, I hope it's a big success because it's really the only thing they have going over there. And if not, Monsters of California,
it's
Tom DeLonge's. Yeah,
it's a fantasy of some dude who probably did plenty of down the road.
Yeah. So the point was, though, Steve, that in those ventures, you're pretty much donating your money. Like even at TTSA, if you do ever get a payback, it'll be so minuscule it wouldn't be your money back. But in this venture, you're getting a flat rate and owning part of the film for royalties.
This movie that they're talking about coming out with at TTSA, you're talking about that movie?
No, I was actually just talking
to this subject matter.
That's what he asked. How was this investment different than TTSA? That's what I was trying to answer.
I'm asking anyone. How does that movie you're hearing about
have
anything to do with the veracity of UFO investigations, reporting, historically, or anywhere else? What is this exactly? It's a piece of entertainment, nothing more, nothing less. And made by a group that convinced the public they were going to be bringing out truth about mysteries of these kinds. And in reality, the movie is made by a wannabe filmmaker who used to be a rocker who took advantage of people with a Regulation A+ stock scheme. Did I miss anything here?
No, I mean, like I said, I think if people watched my TTSA breakdown, they know that every nickel that goes into that place goes right to Tom DeLonge and his family trust and his.
So listen, I recognize the position I'm in right now. The networks are not giving me the money to make these. I'm only getting 20% from the distribution company. So I'm having to become more of an executive producer of movies where the EP usually is raising the money. But that's a very normal process for filmmakers. That doesn't mean though that I should be usurping people's belief in fantasy and nonsense to make something that's my private pet project. It doesn't seem
I agree.
So disingenuous,
and that's where you get into the kind of fraudulent aspects of it. And what's the difference between a business venture and a fraudulent venture? One that fails and one that succeeds. As we saw, I've mentioned this to you before with Theranos and whatnot. It's the same kind of situation. If this bombs, it might be a fraud. But then again, I mean, TTSA offered a flying car to the world with a revolutionary power source.
I want to make sure we're clear.
They didn't bring none of it.
Bombs. What do you mean if this bombs? What? This movie that nobody's going to watch. Do you think that
forget about Monsters of California? I don't think it's going to.
What is that even? I'm in California right now. What is Monsters of California really about? What monsters are here that I'm unaware of?
From what I can tell from the trailer, it looks like Tom DeLonge wrote down one of his boyhood fantasies into a film and made a alien UFO movie about it.
Where do you live? Where are you? What town are you in the port? Where are you exactly? Give me the can you tell me what location?
I'm in Portland.
Okay. If I did a movie, Monsters above Portland, wouldn't you take a little umbrage on that? Or don't you think you're into mysteries and stuff? And so someone says to me, I'm living in California for how many years now?
Sure, they made a whole TV series about my town that I didn't really think was accurate, but it was funny, and it was kind of
a different subject, right? So here we are. If you say to me, and my job is to cover mysteries of that kind in general, I'm not saying monsters, but mysteries like this. And someone comes around and says, I'm making a movie Monsters of California, yeah, I take a look. But if it's
Yeah.
BS,
Yeah.
and it's BS before you even have it come out, and you know it's BS, people should say it's BS. And yes, we're in a very competitive world now. We're in a post-truth world, Manny.
Mm-hmm.
If I had $1 for every time I've heard someone agree that we're in a post-truth world, I'd be doing fine with the movie investment money right now, right? So, post-truth world is where we're living right now.
Yeah.
Truth doesn't matter to anybody anymore. If it feels good
Yeah.
to them, hey, it's good, I like it, I'll watch it. Then I'm fighting back on that. I
Yeah.
think you can have both. You can have great knowledge of a mystery and still be fascinated like hell,
There's
but
nothing more.
staying on the truth.
Yeah, I
You can
agree.
do
And
that, man.
there's nothing more frustrating than going through a story like that. And my own personal experience with the Noah's Ark hoax, to go back to what we were talking about before, I think it was probably 7 or 8 years ago that I stumbled across that whole thing online and dug down. I was like, wait a minute, they found the Ark. I start researching it. I spend like 3 nights on it. And on the 3rd night, I find the interview where the guy's like, oh, I never left California. It was all a bunch of BS. That was a piece of railroad tie I
I'm
found out
curious,
in the desert.
why did it take so long? That was pretty much like, wasn't it stamped hoax in your internet searching?
No,
Was it
because
like,
there was a lot of people that were perpetuating it to this day, and there were still, even to this day, I see people go online and use that as a truthful statement to make a point. You
oh, there's
know,
no doubt.
I mean, I've
There
seen
was-
people say that was the reason that we went into Iraq, was because of a UFO tech, and that this Noah Ark, finding the Ark there, was part of the secret recovery of crashed retrieval.
Oh,
You know,
God,
I mean,
really?
come on, man, and and it's all based on a fake news article from the '90s, or a fake,
Big documentary by
documentary
a
that
Utah
was.
group called Sun Classics, right?
Right. And that's what makes me mad, is that people are still, I could show you on Twitter where people still believe that Noah's Ark was found on Mount Ararat, even though it's been debunked and disproven. So, I mean, there's people that still do believe that stuff. You can't unring the bell. And,
I'm glad you ended on that tonight, Manny, because it's a full circle.
yeah.
Regardless of the motivations.
And those cons,
Regardless.
that's what I was saying though, Bob, those cons keep conning, even once they're debunked. They keep hurting people. That one just got me in 2015. So
I remember these are marks, like in my history and my work in television. These are the days, the red letter days. The Noah's Ark hoax, a warning. Be a really good producer. Be a really good executive. Be honorable to the people watching in the millions. If you have that many viewers at that time, they had 20 million viewers. Be honorable. Do a good job. Okay, that's number one. All right.
Yeah.
If you are lying to people,
Get out.
lying.
Get out if you're lying. Get out, because people are coming for you, including
If
us.
you're being set up by people, by a person, to go look at a case in another country, and you've not really investigated yourself, and when you finally do investigate it, you think you made a good movie or whatever, and then you find out others have investigated years before and found out to be a blatant fraud, you got to go public and say that. Excuse me. I got motivated to make this thing, but I realize now that it might involve a cripple, and the cripple might be what these girls saw. And you look at the pictures of the cripple and the pictures of what the girls drew as the alien, and it's exactly the same. I don't even mean like Manny. I don't mean like an overlay. You overlay the pictures and you go, how could it be the girls with a forensic, whatever artist drew, and then of course the girl came out later and said it was all a fraud, and then the autopsy. So who's going to reel that in? Now, I can't say where or what, because I want to be fair to the company I'm working with, but I'm telling you, Manny, it's a black eye, and that's the bookends of Noah's Ark meets Brazil.
Yeah.
And by the way, I never can change my stripes. I'm a journalist. All I care about is getting to the truth. If that's not the kind of thing you want, I'm the wrong guy. Find someone who wants to make up bullshit. Good luck. But I do believe, Manny, there's a connection between all what we're seeing, who our last president was, who's coming back, try again.
Fake news and misinformation and propaganda, psyops, all of it. It's all out there. People need, we need, it's something that I've talked about many times. And I just say, that's why I kind of trust people, I trust certain journalists, not publications anymore. You can't just turn on any channel or news source and expect to get the straight juice, the straight truth. You know, you got to find people who are reputable and follow them and hope that they're reporting on what you're interested in, you know, or get out there and realize that most of what people are telling you is got some kind of slant on it, whether it's a big one or a small one. You know, all media seems to be a little more biased nowadays, but I mean, I'm trying to be nice here, but
it's more than bias. We're really happy. It's more than bias. What happens is I'll tell you what you realize very early in this field, whether you're writing for magazines or you're writing for television, because at the end of the day, I'm a writer, right? When I say I'm a journalist, I'm a writer. It all starts with the writing, right? And the research and writing, right? Like you. So the writing requires you to be completely honest and fair and objective. Yeah. And if you find out that most of the UFO cases are not what they appear to be, you don't mean to debunk anything. You're just going, this is what it is. And we all knew coming into this field, anybody who tried to come in, and there are a couple of really good guys and women I could point to, people I respect, many have worked for me. And with me, I can tell you right now, it's no fun debunking anything. No one likes to, oh, we thought it was an alien, but it's not. Giorgio with the hair, Ancient Aliens, everything is an alien. Because that sells.
Well, you know, there's YouTube channels like that too, you know, and there's people in the press now who are kind of like that too. They just don't care.
They're all jumping in now because they see that, hey, wait a minute, we can sell clickbait, we can sell video links or buys on streaming stuff. We can do this. Nobody's looking. Someone who we won't name tonight, as you know, Manny, said recently to me, hey, Bob, I got no boss. I love it. I'll tell you what boss you got, dude. You got people that care about truth.
That's right.
And I'm one of them. And I might not be driving a car that you're driving today, and I may not be living where you claim you're living. But I'll tell you right now, keep it real. You better. This is my coming out party, Manny. You know that. And I want people to know I wasn't sitting around for the last few years during the pandemic.
Right.
These are going to be moments in this field where people have to look in the mirror. And even Joe Rogan. Oh, yeah. If Joe doesn't want to have me on because he's afraid to have a debate with me, what does that say? Let's talk about what the honesty and issues are about as a person speaking to millions of men out there. Millions of people listen to your show, care. What's your responsibility? Do you have any? To be objective and bring them what's really logically true.
Yeah.
I mean, do you really think, let me ask you a question. Do you really think?
One last question, then we got to go. We're over 2 hours here, so we need to wrap it up.
Do you really think I'm crazy? That's what I'm going to say. Do you think I'm missing something here? I mean, if I am, tell me.
No, I think there should be a responsibility in journalism. I have a small following on YouTube, but I feel a responsibility to the small following that I have to not put out garbage, crap content, to not put out clickbait content, and to do my best to research things and to give them a real pragmatic look at what I found.
That's why Art told me to contact you. That's why Art said, give Manny a ring. And by the way, again, for the umpteenth time, fabulous job on Who's Lou. Thank you. Set the stage for a lot of where we're headed with him. And I hope you're willing to bring on some guy named Jeremy one day who might be willing to come on and talk to you some more about what we hinted on tonight.
I think actually I just heard that UAPX now has an agent to book interviews with, which kind of didn't go over well with the podcast circuit. But for a case like Ufologics, I mean, whatever, you kind of expect that you might have to book and pay for talent sometimes. So we might be able to get a hold of Jeremy now because he actually has an agent and can, might be willing to speak with us. So yeah, and there's some other people out there that we hope could come out and tell their story too that are relevant to this too, right?
Well, if you have 10 seconds left, I just wanted to say this much to everybody in the field. Don't get it. People should never get me wrong. If it was 500,000 billion people or 1 billion people that have watched my shows, I don't care. The bottom line is this: honesty and truth matter. You deserve it. People should recognize it. Manny's trying. I'm trying. And all we can do is the best we can. So keep it up. Keep watching. I love the fact people are into the subject matter. I love the next generation's interested in it. But you can move away from the UAP glitch in it and get back to the real story going on here.
Definitely. We'll get to that too as we get through, like you said, clean the board on some of this stuff and then look at some of the really good sightings that need to be looked at. And we could focus on those because there won't be so much distractions around, at the ufologics, so to speak.
As Jimmy Kimmel said, to Hillary Clinton, when she was running for president, I like UFOs better, Hillary. I
All
like
right.
UFOs better. What is this UAP thing? It's like beyond my realm.
I like UFOs too, man. I never liked the UAP thing, but Bob, do you want to say anything to the audience before I kick you back to the backstage?
I wanted to quote my interview in Ufologics. One thing he said to me recently. He says, you know, the word phenomenon and the word phenomenology, it's been usurped by these characters to mean something besides what it really means. Phenomenology could be a rocket coming in and watching the way the things fly off of it, way a comet comes in and leaves certain things. That's phenomenology. That's phenomena. To just call something the phenomenon or whatever is an empty word. So be really good consumers of what we're talking about, and trust your journalists out there if they're working hard like me.
All right, sounds good. All right, that's Bob Kiviat, everybody. Thank you all for coming by. I'm not going to go through the list of everyone. I saw your guys' chats there, but I was trying to focus on a conversation with Bob here tonight. So no, I wasn't going to go and shout out everybody and whatnot. But I do thank everybody who decided to come by, and we'll hopefully in the near future we'll get back together again. And we'll do some updates for people as things are moving on with some of these projects. We can get some information out to all these people, and yeah, take it from there.
Manny, thank you for the time. Thank you for the platform. I feel a little bit like a politician trying to turn the ufologics back to
UFOs?
A different realm. But I guess what was that, Manny?
Turn it back to UFOs?
You know, at least we got the one part of the word ufologics covered, and maybe the other part's what I did tonight a little bit. But you know, someone's got to speak out eventually, Manny. And thank you for the platform. I mean it.
All right, take care, Bob. We'll talk soon.
Take care. Bye-bye.
All right. Now, everybody out there, like I said, thanks for coming by. Like I said, I'm not going to shout out too many people, but I do have a little outro video for you, and I appreciate everyone's support over the time. You know, I've been real busy lately and haven't had a chance to get on and do a lot of video work, but I will be trying to do some more stuff, updates and whatnot here on the channel, or maybe you'll see some shorts come out soon. So keep an eye posted. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, you can do that down below. And Bob's Twitter account is pinned right in the top of the comment section in the chat. So I hope if you're on Twitter, everyone goes out there and gives Bob a follow at Kiviat Films to get updates about what's going on there as well too. So until I see you guys next time, take care and be safe and have fun.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.